Good morning, everyone. I'm Sharon Jaffe Dan, Editor-in-Chief of Home and Design magazine. Thanks for joining us today. When dreaming up an English country-style retreat on 5 acres of pristine farmland, the architects discovered an 1860s log cabin on site and decided to salvage and incorporate it into the main building. This vestige from the past is just one of many elements that lend the new home character and timeless charm. A modern day interpretation of English arts and crafts style, the house is built with organic materials similar to those you'd find back in William Morris's day. The landscape plan, especially around the cabin, furthers the narrative that the residence has evolved over many years. And the interiors, which celebrate nature and the owner's treasured works of art, convey undeniable, collected over time appeal. Writer Catherine Funkhauser beautifully captured the spirit of this home in her story, which appears in our new September-October issue. But this morning, we have a special opportunity to delve deeper into the project and learn how it all came together with many of the talented members of the design team. I'll make some quick introductions now, and we'll take some questions at the end, so feel free to write questions in the chat box. Jennifer Horn studied horticulture at Virginia Tech and later pursued a master's in landscape architecture at University of Georgia. She founded Jennifer Horn Landscape Architecture in 2009 and continues to design luxury landscapes for residences, communities, and resorts. Jennifer is guided by the principle that a landscape should respond to its adjacent architecture and social and natural histories. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Lauren Leese of Lauren Leese & Co. is a decorator, shop owner, and serial house renovator known for her natural down-to-earth style. She has designed her own furniture, fabric, cabinet, and tile collections, and she and her husband David, husband and business partner David, hosted the HGTV show Best House on the Block. Lauren's third book, Feels Like Home, goes on sale October 19th, and I've seen an advanced copy. It's absolutely beautiful, and there's actually a chapter on the house that we're discussing today. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, how's it going?
Good morning. Stephen Vanze attended Brown University and earned a master's of architecture at UVA. After working for a couple of area firms, he and colleague Anki Barnes joined forces to launch Barnes Vanze Architects more than 30 years ago. In tandem with this thriving practice, Steve devotes time to the firm's pro bono work and has served as president of the Washington Architectural Foundation and the chairman of the Old Georgetown Board. Hello, Steve.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We're also delighted that this morning homeowner Neada Onufrychuk is also here with us today. This project has been a labor of love for Neada, her husband Brian, and their 2 children. And Neada has documented the entire journey via a gorgeous Instagram account, which you should definitely check out. It's at House on Willow Hill. Good morning, Neada.
Good morning. How are you?
Everyone. It's so great to get you all together. It immediately was clear to me. I think earlier Steve mentioned we have the band back together. So I can just tell how beautifully you all work together, and the collaborative spirit really shows in the outcome of this home. So we're glad that you could have a little meeting this morning. And Neada is sitting here in the beautiful great room of this house, which looks fabulous.
We'll be wearing our sunglasses and black suits and do the
So I'm going to go ahead and share our screen. We can begin our conversation. So here's a beautiful overview of the house. We can see the log cabin integrated here. In other photos, we'll see on the other side of the home, there's a garage, and Brian's office is above that. And this is our this was the entire design team, and all the photos today are by Anise Hoaklander. So Steve, maybe you can give us an idea of how you came up with the idea of salvaging the log cabin in the first place.
Well, the first time that Melanie Giordano, who is a principal at our firm, and I went to the site with Neada and Brian, it was a beautiful rolling hill site, forested, a little stream at the bottom of the hill, and an ugly little brick house. And as you looked around the back of the ugly little brick house, which everyone knew was coming down, there was this log cabin, which, I'm not sure everyone knew it was there at first, but when we all looked at the log cabin, we said, we're saving that. There aren't many log cabins. So one of the key elements of the whole design process was, how do we save the log cabin? What do we use it for? How do we fix it so it becomes a pleasant, livable space?
What did you have to do to the exterior to kind of preserve or stabilize it?
It was more than the exterior. The bottom, on this elevation you're looking at now, the bottom three, well, you can see they're slightly different color. The bottom three logs were rotted out and had to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
The whole building had to be rechinked. The chinking is the white cementitious material between logs.
Mm-hmm.
Replaced all the windows and doors are new. The roof is new. And if we're able to get an inside shot, we removed the floor and put in a new floor, took out the attic rafters and made it into a cathedral ceiling, opened it up, mm-hmm. and used it as a nice, it's kind of an extension, another family room that opens up to the back and serves as a kind of a connecting piece to the pool.
I love the old looking chimney too. Is that a new element?
No, that was there.
That was there. Wow.
Right. We saved as much as we could.
Amazing.
Things that couldn't be saved went away.
Right. Well, Neada, you provided us with these photos of sort of the whole process. Maybe you can walk us through some of what had to happen.
Sure. So when they picked up the wood plank floors, it was just dirt. So it didn't even have a foundation. So that was kind of neat. We found all kinds of little things in the dirt there. But so yeah, they had to pour a foundation for it. And we had to replace those logs that you see in that first picture. And that's really interesting too, trying to figure out how to fit, a new log into there. So we had these men that were professional log cabin housemakers, and they did it the old-fashioned way, and we have some cool videos of them just like hacking at it with an axe. So when you look at it, it looks very similar to the way that it would have been done. And the way they put it in was really interesting. So that was neat to watch. Yeah.
And the old hearth was part of the original architecture that you preserved. Jennifer, take us outside and tell us how you integrated the log cabin into the landscape and made it look believable that it was an older structure.
Well, we started calling it the remnant garden, and anything that you see except for the cabin itself is new. But we didn't want to put a very new looking landscape in front of it. We wanted it to feel much more connected to the time in which the cabin was built. So we used irregular steppers with thyme and mazes and isotoma growing in the joints. We really wanted it to feel like an extension of the cabin and feel a bit more authentic than something very contemporary next to it. Of course, it is the connection piece in the landscape between the pool, which we wanted to locate in that location, partly because you've got great vista across the property there. But we also wanted to make sure that it felt like it was part of the cabin garden. So we always called it the remnant garden. And I know that you'll see in the slide soon that millstone fountain in the base was used basically as a splash box for the down at the front door. So you can see we stumbled on this during a site and almost walked right over it. And when I realized it was a millstone, we all loved the idea of reincorporating it. And we actually have one more that we'll be using in a future project on the site. But we stripped that clean and then used it as a bubbler. And so it's a great way, again, to sort of reinforce the use of some of the found materials that we have on the site. There are all kinds of agrarian equipment that Neada and Brian have stumbled on that we're trying to find homes for, because again, it sort of completes the storytelling of the landscape.
I love that. So now it's a small water feature.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have mentioned the cabin doubles as a sort of family room and pool house, right, Neada? So you
correct, yeah.
Off the pool as well.
Yes, although that's where I I feel like that's become our dining room. We're in there all the time.
I believe it. It looks so cozy. So Steve, maybe you can tell us how the architecture evolved, knowing you were going to integrate this old structure and you homed in on the arts and crafts style. Maybe sort of give us a quick study of the front facade.
Okay, before I do, I want to say that Neada and Brian, but especially Neada, were almost like conductors of a symphony orchestra. And they assembled the musicians and tapped their baton and brought us a lot of pictures of images that they liked, and a lot of ideas and a written brief about what it was they wanted to accomplish with their new home. So with us listening carefully to that, we came upon the idea of doing a modern English arts and crafts house, and used a lot of images from Voisey, who was an English arts and crafts architect, kind of an icon of that style. We used a lot of his images to get inspiration for how the house would be massed and organized. So a lot of the details come directly from that tradition. You know, the dovecote above the three windows in the gable end there, the little ears and the bent roof at the gable end, little sloped dormer windows, you know, almost all of this, and the interior, it's the same thing, with natural wood cleft beams that, I mean, if you look at these beams, they appear old, but they're actually, it's hard to get old beams, enough of them to match in the right dimensions and everything. So the contractor, Michael Carr of Carmichael Construction, did a miraculous job on his own making these things look old. He took a blowtorch and a hatchet to these things to get it to prematurely age them, much like my children have done to me.
That's great. Lauren, what was your first impression of the architecture, and how did you respect the period but make it fresh and give it a bit of an edge as you started your plan?
Well, first off, I was so excited. You know, you get plans at the beginning of a project, and I was like, these are amazing. So excited to work with the team. And then, you know, Brian and Neada came in, like Steve was saying, with all these amazing images. I mean, like, I am trying to think, Neada, how many? There were like, I've never gotten so many inspiration images, which was amazing. And you could just sort of feel this soulful, kind of romantic yet edgy kind of quality about a lot of the images. And so my goal was to kind of just incorporate that sort of atmosphere and vibe into this amazing, you know, architectural space. It was just, it was fun. It was fun to kind of marry, you know, a little bit of a different style within the other architecture. So it was neat.
And I love how you also incorporated nature, I think, with natural materials. And also, for example, I know some of those are your own fabrics that sort of celebrate nature and integrate it with the landscape.
Yeah, I think
arts and crafts practice too, for the period.
I'm sorry, Sharon, sorry.
It's also true to the period too, that they celebrated nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so a lot of my textiles do have that sort of arts and crafts vibe to them, with the subjects being, you know, the wildflowers and the garden flowers. But Brian and Neada really did want to bring nature in. I think that was something Steve knew, we all knew, bringing nature into this house was a big goal of all of ours. So I was excited about that, because that's, you know, I love doing that. And
right.
It's gotta have nature to feel good.
Right. And it also carries into the kitchen. How did you arrive on the materials in the kitchen, which also seem very organic to me?
Yes, I mean, again, a lot of kind of going through a lot of images and sort of seeing things and elements that were being carried through. But one of the things you'll see throughout the house that we did palette-wise was lots of natural materials, but we took this sort of greigey trim color that you see on the windows, and that color was sort of a thread woven throughout, and then put that on the cabinetry, and then pulled in those really beautiful wood tones. I call them like glowy browns, but basically those sort of cooler grays and grays. And then we pulled in the glowy browns, and then in the other rooms we pulled the fabrics in. But yeah, and then there's a little edge of black. You'll kind of see it throughout almost all the spaces, just a tiny hint, but Neada needed that little edge. I would see it in all the images. I'm like, oh, there's her cool little moment. So here it's the lights, the bar stools, and obviously in the windows.
Right. And we have them with the lights in the great room as well.
Yes.
This looks like such a wonderful kitchen. How have you been enjoying it, Neada? And I love how it's, I mean, the material palette is very traditional, but yet it feels open and modern and very today and functional.
Yeah, we absolutely love it. I think the kitchen's the heart of the home. The way we had it designed with Lauren and with Vanze was that we wanted it to feel like its own separate space, where all the secrets, are held, and all the laughs, happen. And we have pocket doors to our kitchen too, which I feel like is very charming. It feels like its own special spot. So a lot goes on there. We love it.
And Steve, what were your goals? Do you have anything to add about the kitchen?
Well, the kitchen, like Neada just said, the kitchen's kind of the heart of the house, but and diagrammatically, it's kind of the knuckle of the house too. When you, the garage balances the log cabin on the other end of the house and is connected by a glass breezeway, like the log cabin is connected by a glass breezeway to the house. And as you come through the garage, through the glass breezeway and through a series of spaces that are mud rooms and a little office for Neada, and into the kitchen, which forms a knuckle that then opens up to that big family room. So I think this space is, you're looking at almost on axis from the view that you'd see from the garage. And as you enter the space, then you're on axis with the great room. So it's the heart and the knuckle of the whole house, which is part of our, part of the organization of the design of the house. There's above the kitchen is the master bedroom. So this is the kind of the wing for the king and queen. And then the great room, on the other end of the great room are the two children's rooms. And then the breezeway to the log cabin. Again, the kitchen, this wing of the house is the command center.
That's great.
Yeah, I wanted to say one quick thing about you're talking about the landscape. We've worked with Jennifer on many projects, and one important thing that we bring to each other when we're working together is, to an architect, the landscape is another room of the house. So you're looking through French doors, and it's an exterior room. And I think, I might not have this right, Jennifer, but I think to the landscape architect, to Jennifer, we're an object in her landscape space.
I could agree with that. I think that works. We always look at the vistas out of the windows and try to organize those views the same way that Steve and Lauren and Neada and Brian do as well.
And this would be one of them. Which that's almost like a work of art framed in the windows to look at it at the woods there.
I think that was Steve's most favorite view from the garage. If you go stand by the garage and just like, look at how, that view from here, you loved it.
My favorite view is from your bedroom.
Me too.
Floor to ceiling glass, that captures the whole landscape. So.
Yeah. So if we were arriving as guests, this would be our first impression, which I love. Lauren, how does this space kind of set the tone and also express the family's personality? I love this entry.
Well, first of all, the gallery wall of Neada's collection of amazing art. I think at the beginning of the project, Neada, how did this whole, it kind of just evolved. It was like this very, we were like, well, we're going to need a lot of art. You have a lot of walls, and she's a huge art collector. So she's like, no problem. And Neada just started collecting these amazing pieces. And so we were like, you literally cannot order too many. Although Neada, you posted recently where you're like, I'm running out of walls.
I know. And luckily we have the lake house, your old lake house.
Good.
Fill up. So
yes. And so, yeah, it's about showcasing Netta's love for art. And you can, if you just look at, you can see she's really got an eye and a style. And again, the art and the palette also just work really beautifully together. And then the door that's hanging, in the stair landing, a member of my team, designer Lauren Reynolds, we were running around, it's install week, we're just hanging things everywhere. And she's like, hey, wouldn't that door be amazing at the landing on the stairs? I'm like, yeah, let's put it up. And it's just so cool because it brings the cabin and that history into the new part of the house there. And then, lots of the textiles and fabrics, again, very nature bent in the foyer, and the hit of black.
Hit of black, yeah, it's
Yeah.
Netta, maybe you can explain sort of why art is so important to you and what you look for, what talks to you, what's your philosophy of how you put it all together?
So this is just the biggest question, with so many answers, but I'll try and keep it simple. Growing up, my parents, they immigrated here. And when you come from a different country, you really don't have much to put on your walls. You don't bring your, art and decor with you. So I would say most of my growing up, childhood, we always saw white walls. And my imagination always drifted into the walls and the ceilings, and I would flip the house upside down and, see what I could do with it upside down and with all the walls. So there were always just like these blank spaces with questions. And for me, I feel like art is all the answers that I love to have. And they are all just, some people travel to get, to expand their worldview. I feel like I look at art and it just kind of expands my view on so much. It takes me all over the place in my brain. So I just love it. It's a very personal experience for me.
Well, you've done such a wonderful job. And our next view is going to be the library. So we can see the library in this shot. And then this is the breezeway leading to the cabin. But here's the library looking back towards the foyer. And I know Brian collects antique coins. Steve, what were the criteria in the library and how does it fit in with the architectural plan?
This was a space that was a transitional space from the main house, as you said, leading to the breezeway into the log cabin. And it also connects to a covered outdoor space with a fireplace that off to the right here in this picture. Brian is and was and will be a voracious reader, as am I. So we were able to talk about books a lot. And as you said, he collects old coins. So this space, I guess it's the other knuckle of the house. This is the knuckle that connects to the outside because it goes to the outdoor covered space, connects to the log cabin and back to the main house. And it is, and it's, I hope this is correct, Neada. This is Brian's space. This is his books. And
whoa.
Okay.
All right, fine. A little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
Don't mind though.
Okay. But this is a lot of things that are dear to Brian are in this space, and the idea was to display them in a beautiful way and in a beautiful space.
Then this is the glass breezeway, which takes us back into the cabin. So we're kind of going full circle. And here's a great interior shot. And it just looks like such a cozy space for gathering, for having meals. I can see why this would be your casual dining room, Netta.
Yeah, we absolutely love it. It's Lauren did an awesome job with it. The architects did a great job with the ideas of what to do with it. And Mike did a great job saving it. There were so many times that I would walk into this space and think to myself, what did we do? Why are we doing this? Because it had to kind of, look real ugly before it looked really good. They had to, take out all the chinking and then insulate and then, put new chinking. And I was really concerned because you're putting it onto your new home. And I was thinking to myself, this might fall in a few years, but it's perfect. I love it. And I will keep it up to last another 100 years.
Well, that's So beautiful. Lauren, how did the furniture in here come about?
Oh, okay. This is one of my favorite spaces. I say this in a lot of the rooms. I'm like, I think this is my favorite. This is one of my favorites. But it was one of those things we knew we wanted it to be casual. We thought it would be and more of an entertaining space when friends came over and all that. I love that you guys are using it more now as your dining room. And so if you look, the tables are 2 tables pushed together. It's not one, it's 2 tables. I wanted it to feel collected and sort of like it happened over time, kind of as the cabin did. So the chairs don't match. We've got new mixed with vintage chairs in there. And then really, really comfortable upholstery, washable slip covers mixed with leather. So you don't have to worry. They can have kids sleepovers and all that kind of thing going on there without any worries for spills. Just really comfortable and lots of, linens and leathers and stone and all the natural materials.
So great. And then headed back outside, Jennifer, I was hoping you could kind of walk us through the different zones and how the landscaping came together. So we have different views. This, of course, is right outside the cabin and the breezeway.
Well, the front, the front beds of the main house, we wanted that to be fairly buttoned up, right? We wanted it to look nice all year round. You see it every day. So we have a mix of camellia, boxwood, sweet box, and lavender. The lavender were these sad little plugs when we planted them, and they've quadrupled even more in size because it's full sun all afternoon. They're very happy there. This area, the breezeway, we thought about how often they'd be walking to and from the cabin, and we wanted this garden to have a lot of evergreen presence, but also a dynamic quality in the winter and in the fall. So we have some fall color with fothergilla. We've got the winter blooming camellias. We've also got winterberry holly, so you get red berries. We really did think about this in a lot of fall and winter views. And I love that Lauren mentioned the sort of accumulation of different choices for the furnishings in the cabin, because on the rear side with that remnant garden, we kind of had a similar idea. We picked in that remnant garden near the outdoor terrace and the fireplace, we picked a bunch of different things, and we wanted them to feel similar in style, but we also wanted it to feel a tiny bit random, so that there were random plugs of maidenhair fern that were kind of cropping out next to the water fountain, and one, oversized agastache that felt like it had been there all along. So we wanted that to feel kind of unrehearsed and a little bit random. Whereas the beds we established some privacy to divide the pool terrace where we're standing right now with the sport court, which is behind the perspective of the person taking the photo. And those evergreens give us a nice structure, a backdrop on which to look at the house when you're at the pool. And then the other thing that, and I have to give a major shout out to Planet Earth Landscaping, because they did the landscape for all of this and have been such great partners with Neada and Brian and myself, and seeing the garden evolve and grow. And even just recently, I dropped Neada a note and I said, I think we need more of a deep pink in the late summer by your pool terrace. And she's like, yes, make it happen. So
meanwhile, I'm like, I need more here, more here, more here, more. Love plant landscaping. So much fun.
It's been a really fun process. And the beds near the pool are sort of an elevated herb garden / perennial garden. And that's where we start to drift off into the meadow spaces that we've been establishing. So we've got big vistas of lawn with very particular expanses of wildflower meadow. And we're seeing those evolve with a mix of cosmos and tall sunflower and different native grasses, which has also brought us a wonderful amount of birds. And I know that Neada and Brian were really interested in seeing birds and wildflower, birds and butterflies and all kinds of beneficial wildlife in the garden as well.
Wonderful. What drove the siting of the pool? How did you decide where to put the pool terrace?
Well, most practically, we want a sport court, and you can just see a peak of the backboard back there. And we typically want to orient that north-south, so you're not shooting into a setting sun. Further, we wanted the pool to have an opportunity to sunbathe. So we want to think about that in the location. What's probably something that most people may not see right away is there's a bit of cross pitch from that sport court down to behind the photographer's perspective. So we worked very closely with Steve and his team on setting the right elevations for everything. And so the pool is set a little bit high, again, for a very practical reason, that in the winter, if there's a pool cover on that, you don't really see it. So we're working with the grade, we're establishing a cross pitch that feels organic, but also creating an opportunity that the sport court is not highly, I'm sorry, the cover on the pool is not highly visible when the pool is not in use. We do know that there's going to be a lot of use in that cabin, a lot of use in the covered terrace to the back of the house in this view. And we didn't want to feel like you were looking at the eyesore of a winter cover on a pool.
So were there any challenges, any of you, that we haven't spoken about that you can think of, or stories to relate?
There's some challenges. Well, right now, we're actually working with Brian and Neda and Jennifer on a little greenhouse garden structure in the back. And there's been some challenges there just because of grading and setting it far enough away from the septic field. And this site is actually much more steeply sloped than it appears in these pictures. And one of the challenges with designing the house was trying to figure out how you get from the road up to the house without feeling like you were climbing a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So in siting, we had the log cabin, which in some ways is the tail wagging the dog. We had the log cabin, which was going to kind of fix the house at a certain to where it was going to be. It was the anchor that set the house, I guess. And then figuring out a driveway that brought you up in a gracious way to the front car court and the entry. I guess that was probably the biggest challenge for us, getting
a lot of moving of the house. It kind of, we left the cabin where it was. At one point we thought about moving the cabin, didn't we? Like up the hill or something like that.
We actually built, remember, Neda, we built a full model of the whole site, a topographic model of the whole site.
Yes.
Did little cutouts of the house and moved it around the site to figure out how to
Yeah.
make the house fit the site nicely.
And I'll actually just tag on what Steve said. When we looked at the overall master planning for this, we did think about originally a walled garden and the idea of sort of having old pieces and new pieces. So if you look at that shot of the cabin, the original idea, which is pretty close to what we're doing, that is almost on axis with where this greenhouse and vegetable garden is going to be. And the idea is that those two elements will speak to each other, whereas the house and the pool, which are more contemporary elements, speak to each other as well.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea. So we are ready to open it up to questions. If any of our friends who have tuned in today have questions. I don't see questions yet. I think you've all been so thorough in your answers.
Well, we've bored everyone to death and they've all gone to sleep.
Someone woke. I'm having a hard time opening the question.
I'll throw out a random, I wouldn't say it's really a problem, but to fill the dead space for a minute, those lights that we talked about in the living room, the black ones, the sort of kind of lanterns with the pierced metal, we had actually originally spec'd these glass and brass lanterns, and we were so sad and heartbroken when they were back ordered. And I think we looked for like 6 or 7 or 8 months to find those, and finally it was a new product that came on and we got it, and now that hit of black is like, well, what was I thinking to not do that?
Now, Lauren, are you discovering that everything is back ordered?
The world is back ordered. Yes.
World. Yep.
Whole world. But it always seems to work like that. I feel like with projects, that the thing that you wanted that you couldn't get, whatever you find in the end is like, why would we ever not want that one? And it works out for the best, I feel like.
It's so true. I was heartbroken over those great room lights.
So sad.
No, those were it. And then you showed me these, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I love these.
Yeah. Only had to wait like 8 or 9 months.
I have our first question. This is coming all the way from Chicago. So we have a wide viewership today. What are your thoughts on patterns for accent chairs? I noticed many of the furniture pieces are solids.
So there are many solids, but I don't know if it's in the image, but one of the sofas, Neda, if she shifts, there's a pattern sofa actually in her living room. So I do love to mix a bit of pattern in there. I don't know if it's
in that corner, but
it's in the right of this picture. So That's actually a large
Over
sort
there.
of, yeah, kind of Fortuny inspired damask on a modern sofa. So I do love mixing it up. But I also felt that with the architecture, with the views, and also with what Netta was drawn to, I did want a little bit of a quiet feeling here. The house is soulful and it would have been beautiful with nothing in it. So I didn't want to like put a bunch of loud colors and patterns that would compete and take the emphasis off of the architecture, the views. So when you do see patterns in this house, this project, we went really tonal, really tone on tone. You see soft kind of peachy blushes, lots of kind of like mustards and kind of off greens. The blues, the grays, the neutrals in general, because also the artwork as well. Like if you look at this piece, I kind of always think of patterns and artwork. I think of artwork like a pattern because it's kind of providing that energy and movement to a room. So when you know that you're going to have, I think we knew for so long that we were doing these Chelsea fly pieces on the back wall. And so you know there's going to be a hit of pattern there. So that's why you get that solid sofa. Sorry, waving my man hands at you guys. But then there's that kind of solid with a little bit of pattern on it, but then there's a break of the solid chairs and then you hit that pattern again. So everyone has their own sort of solid to pattern ratio. And it's different for every project, but here it was kind of wanted it slower and quiet.
Okay. Another question we have. I've been excited to follow along on Netta's Instagram and love the latest edition of farm animals. How are you finding the process of integrating structures for animals into the overall plan of the property? Any challenges and what will it include? So do tell Netta, what about your animals?
It's been such a fun journey because I never grew up with, I only had goldfish. Like that's, so it's been a really fun journey. And knowing that we can, COVID inspired us to really want to use our outdoor spaces in the best way possible. And, you know, we have 5 acres. So it just made sense to create just little different places to have a little journey around the property. And we just did the chicken coop, which is my friends call an Airbnb because it's like we took a prefab and just stuccoed it. So it looks a lot like our house, but it's just been fun to get creative for these animals and, you know, learn along the way.
Great. One more question. Someone asks what the square footage is of the log cabin.
Oh gosh, I don't remember, Nada. Do you? I would say it's
Pardon me, what was the question?
20 by, no, the square footage of the log cabin, I'm guessing it's 30 by 40 feet. So it's probably a little more than 1,000 square feet is my guess. It's been a long time.
I think it was like a little under 1,000. I think it was, I don't know, maybe between 7 and 1,000. It wasn't.
It's not enormous. It's not an enormous.
Yeah.
Another question about art. I'm looking at enlarging many photos from travels and debating whether to frame them in a collection of mixed frames or just have them frameless. What are your thoughts? So we'll look at this montage.
I think it depends on who you ask. I think like Lauren, I think you like to stick things on walls, just like, right? Am I right?
You know, it depends on the person. There are times when I will grid everything in matching frames and it's structured. And then there are times when I want everything in mismatched frames and I collect vintage frames. Like in my house, I collect vintage frames and throw things in them. I think it depends on the feeling you want. Do you want it to feel organized and structured and sort of bold, or do you want it to feel kind of collected and like it's ever growing? When it is like that, when I know someone's going to be adding to a collection, we do it like we did in the foyer for Netta, so she can just come home and pop one on the wall or rearrange, more free flowing. So I think it depends on your goals.
For if they're photos, if you're talking about, you know, photos from traveling, I personally do my photos on shelves and you know, tabletops. I use the walls for art, and not saying that your photos are not art, but I do like keeping, you know, my travel and photography of my family and stuff on shelves and tables.
I'll tell you from an architect's perspective, and this might tell you more than I want to tell you about myself. There's a lot of paintings in my house, and every painting is well, almost all of them are in the same frame, and they all line up with each other, and they're all
Of
exact.
course.
I am not surprised, Steve.
Of course.
And no matter what the painting is, almost all the frames are the same size. So,
That's what I would picture. The other thing I would say with travel photography is sometimes one can be incredible, like blow it up. Like I'll show you guys in our office really quickly. We have this, okay, I hope I'm not ruining Zoom, but do you guys see like this huge piece here? So that's a huge photo of goats or something. But when you blow it up really big and unexpected, it can really feel neat. And sometimes I'll overlap it like under furniture or behind furniture and almost becomes like a mural, which can be cool too.
Well, I stopped screen sharing and lo and behold, I can see the questions.
Oh,
Now I remember. Someone asks, what material is used between the logs on the log cabin?
it's a cementitious, it's, you know, Portland cement and gosh, who knows? It's
And
gum.
then on top of that is stucco. So we use the same stucco from our house on top of whatever this.
For the final finish, but the
Yeah,
chink,
for the final finish.
the chinking is, you know, you say to the log cabin guy, chink it, and they chink it.
Yeah. But they did put one thing it didn't originally have was they put this like mesh. I'm probably going to say this all wrong, but it's like a mesh wire thing, and then they sprayed the insulation into it, which it did not have before. And then they put the concrete-y stuff, and then the stucco. So, yeah, quite a process.
Here's a great question for you, Netta. What's your favorite view from the house?
Oh gosh, I love it all. I don't think I have a favorite. I love it all. I love our like Steve said, the window in our room. I love that. I spend a lot of time sitting on a stool there, just looking out. Yeah, I love it all.
Here's another question. Did you all think much about sustainability in the design and construction for materials or heating, cooling, etc.?
Our office is does a lot. We do as much sustainable work as we're able to do on every project. So we have a long list of things that will help a project become green. And there are many of those things we do automatically. Things that don't cost anything, we do automatically. The way we insulate buildings now is extremely tight and extremely efficient and saves a lot of energy. So we do a lot of things automatically without asking anybody. And then as other items that are LEED certified or sustainable come up and cost more, we have discussions with the homeowner. This particular project is insulated in an unbelievable way. So it is tight and efficient, but it does not do things like geothermal heating, which we do often now. It's becoming much more common. So, you know, I would say that materials are all natural materials, and the envelope of the building is as green as you can get.
How about with the landscape, Jennifer? Any?
We typically, we don't use only native plants. I know a lot of people do. We do a mix. We certainly don't do anything that's invasive, but personally I like rosemary and lavender too much to be too strict. But I did like that Netta and Brian, we didn't deer fence the property, which I think is worth noting, because I feel that we're all dealing with deer pressure, and the instinct is to fence them out. And I think there's a tremendous amount of variety that we can incorporate in the landscape without fencing off the deer. Because when you do that, then you fence off the foxes and all of the mammalian wildlife that you'd want to engage in your property. So I think that there's,
Remember that you have chickens, Jennifer. You got to fence out the foxes.
I know, we got to watch out for the foxes. So far, so good on that. But I think, you know, in terms of that, we want to make sure that we're handling the stormwater in the most sensitive way possible. There is a fair amount of cross pitch. There's all of the county required stormwater infrastructure associated with the plan. We try to make sure that we're really rigorous with that and go beyond what the county will require. Because as we all know, storms are getting more intense, more frequent, and potentially more devastating if we don't have a very strong belt and suspenders approach to that. So I think that's certainly one of the big things that we look at.
Here's a timely question, another timely question. What advice do you have for people considering a large project right now in the world of lumber scarcity and back orders?
Suck it up.
Be patient, you know,
it's not going to change anytime soon.
yeah.
I think we're in this this is going to be with us for years. So I'm doing a big renovation for myself right now, and things cost more. Lumber's hard to get. I'm not going to get my stove until after the New Year's. This is just the new world we live in. And I'm sure Lauren will tell you that, if I told you right now, Lauren, I want a sofa in a month, what would you tell me?
We would laugh together.
Yeah, I feel like, it's a good opportunity to get creative, like find, a vintage piece, reupholster it, there are ways to get creative, right? To fill up the house, Lauren, right?
Yes, but even the vintage pieces are sometimes taking months to ship because shipping is an issue. Like we order vintage things or we buy it, they take the money and they're like a month later you hear back, oh, sorry, we sold that to somebody else. Here's your money back. So, I mean, just the supply chain is just crazy. But I do think it's one of those things that I think everyone on this team I know knows, and I think a lot of people know that we're so lucky to be getting to do something like that, to get to renovate, to get to redecorate, to get to buy a new sofa or whatever it is. It's kind of like, you know what, just be patient, be happy, be grateful you're doing it, and just kind of get used to these new timelines, because that's really how it is now.
Well, and I think it's interesting too. We've seen, I remember planting Netta's house and like right at the shutdown, March 2020. And it's so interesting to see how much more emphasis people put on their landscape since then. And it's very exciting as a landscaper. It's a terrible thing to say, I'm sorry, but it's interesting to see how landscape has gotten so important. And there's for people who are fortunate enough to be able to have landscapes to improve, it's nice to see that people are investing in that and appreciate those landscapes. So it's been very interesting to see that impact.
They're just trying to grow their own lumber.
It's interesting too, though, and I think you are all probably noticing this. It also changes now the cadence and length of a project and the length of time you're working with people. And so with our business, we've had to really rethink and restructure. Okay, how many people do we take at one time now that these projects are stretched an additional 8 months or 10 months? So it's really, I think a lot of us on the back end are like, okay, I have to rethink all the business practices I've been doing for all these years to now we're actually having to do furniture sometimes sooner than we're designing the kitchens and the baths, which is never how I've done it. And so it's crazy to kind of rework it all.
Right, so many ripple effects.
Yeah.
One of our viewers would like to know, Lauren, if you could share the paint colors.
Oh, okay. You know what? I think I let me just check really quickly. I think I literally have it here.
I could tell you the walls and the trim.
Yes. So we've got Greek Villa. Netta, do you have this memorized?
I have Greek Villa, Sherwin-Williams for the walls, and then Jogging Path, Sherwin-Williams for the trim and the kitchen cabinets. And then,
didn't we use that everywhere?
We did. We used it everywhere.
Okay.
Yes. But another question I get a lot for the color is for our windows. We did bronze color instead of black, and it was just a color match of Marvin windows. They're bronze.
People should be aware, whatever you're seeing on your computer screen, it changes the color. So if you're looking at something now and thinking, I really like that color, the colors that they're naming will not look like what you see on the computer. It's true.
PSA from Steve. It's true.
Another art question. What are tips for hanging a gallery wall like you have in your foyer?
Well, Lauren, do you want to answer that since you hung that one?
Sure. I just kind of lay all the pieces out, either lean them up on walls or lean them on the ground. And I kind of start with what I think is going to be my middle piece. And then I start kind of making pairs, even if they're not actual pairs, just to get scale. So I'll be like, oh, here's one this size, one that size. And I sort of just start with the middle and go half and half. And then I start hanging from the middle. And Netta, I don't know if there are extra holes behind those, because sometimes there are. I just kind of just eye it and just feel what feels right. But I do kind of lay it out on the floor, and then I just start hanging them, but I build from the center. And I like them anywhere from, depending on how tight they're, an inch to 3 or 4 inches if the pieces are getting bigger. I think those are around 1.75 or 2 inches apart, maybe in the foyer. But just if it's bigger pieces, bigger spaces, generally. But there's so many ways to do it. I've seen people do it with like brown paper. They cut it out and tape it when they don't want all the holes. But I feel like I need to see it to happen. If it's a grid, I ask my husband to do it because that requires a tape measure. And so it's all you.
Okay, we have time for one final question. And this is, you have 5 beautiful wooded acres. When will the zip line and high ropes course be installed in the landscape?
Is that our builder asking that question? he used to look around and pick trees and be like, that's the tree for the zip line, that's the tree for the swing, you know.
Netta, you're not far off. It's Justin.
Is it Justin? Okay, I knew it had to. Anyway, I don't know, Justin, you got to help me with that one. But yeah, we're trying to make the property as much fun as possible, you know, to get everyone outside. And that's why I believe so much in the value of landscaping and, you know, get anything that gets you outside. And, you know, the flowers, appreciating the flowers. And so, yeah, we need a zip line. That's what we need. Yeah.
You'll start enjoying all the beautiful fall colors.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Well, I want to thank each and every one of our panelists today. You were so generous and informative and engaging and really made this a pleasure. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope to see you in person very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I miss you all.
Yes, I miss you guys too.
I know.
Well, good luck with your book, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yes,
It was so good to see everybody.
So great to see you all. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.